What's up, everybody? I want to come to you today and I want to thank all the donors that have been coming out in full force and helping us progress. It's been a little more than a week since I put out my last video. The reason being is because of the donations. We're going to be moving to a platform where we're going to be doing 15-minute podcasts 5 days a week, as well as doing one show per day and possibly a couple of live shows mixed in throughout the week, and doing a major podcast on Mondays. So again, we're still growing, we're still moving. We got better cameras, we have tripods now, working on getting better live software. Thank you to Switcher. And there was a video that was brought to my attention about a police shooting, I believe it was in Tennessee, where the driver had been stopped for expired tags. And during the stop, at some point, there became an antagonist, which was another police officer, because the first police officer actually conducted herself as a professional. But then the escalation came with the partner. And in doing so, the driver of the vehicle sped off and was essentially killed by the police officer. I gave a comment. I gave it via my point of view of, one, understanding the actual law, and then two, as a person that kind of, I'm gonna be a little bit skewed on it because of my experiences with police officers. And in doing so, I stated that the initial stop was illegal. And then I stated that the police officer's action violated one police procedure, which made him liable for wrongful death in federal court. Well, in the instant of that, there were several people that spoke out that, oh yeah, there was probable cause for the stop. You're wrong. And they went straight to name calling and trying to figure out what political party I'm affiliated with. Now, the thing was, I gave several references to Supreme Court cases. No one disputed the Supreme Court cases with actual facts. Everyone that responded with opinions. Now, I'm going to go over this one really quick because we've done this a couple of videos. Now, again, we understand that when we're talking about police procedure and police duties, what they are able to do and what they are not able to do. And the first part of that is stopping someone without there actually being a crime. How we define a crime is, or occurrence of loss or injury, the criminal causation of that loss or injury, and the identity of the person that perpetrated the injury. Now we go to Shearer v. Cullen, 481, 1973. For a crime to exist, there must be an injured party. Why is that Supreme Court case so important when we're talking about a traffic stop? Well, we know probable cause only comes from a crime. Even in Delaware v. Prowse in 1979, the Supreme Court ruled that the police may not stop motorists without any probable cause to suspect a crime or illegal activity to check their license or auto registration. Now, auto registration is something that's done with the tag. So if they're not a suspect of a crime, Delaware v. Prowse states the police cannot stop them to check or even examine if the tag is expired or not, because there's no crime. And we know for any matter to exist, there has to have Corpus Delicti. And the beautiful thing about Corpus Delicti, it reinforces Shearer v. Cullen, because Corpus Delicti is the occurrence of loss or injury. The causation of that loss has to be criminal, which means intentional, which comes from mens rea, the guilty mind. And actus reus is the guilty act. The act has to be with intention. There has to be an intent to do so. No conviction or no penalty can be imposed without intent, which is why it is so difficult for them to win trials, because they have to prove intent. How can you have intent when there is no crime? How can you have intent with a tag? How can you have intent when you're discussing registration on a vehicle? There were several other questions that were brought up. The thing was, they went to state statutes, codes, and ordinances. And the funny thing about that is, had a young man say, hey, if you can show me where it's overturned because of this, I'll leave it alone. So I politely put the selective incorporation doctrine. And I listed, I believe, 3 of the 5 cases that's in that selective incorporation doctrine, where without a shadow of a doubt, these cases showed the supremacy clause. Because where there is a discrepancy between a state statute, code, or ordinance and a federal statute, code, and ordinance, or Supreme Court case, the Supreme Court case and federal statutes override them. So that means it makes all state statutes, codes, and ordinances null and void if they do not agree with federal codes. And even if, and when we're talking about other aspects of it, which I'll get into deeper, but the whole point of it is to understand every act offers you police procedure. I think I've said that probably about at least 20 times now. And every action has case law that follows it. When procedure is violated, it is up to you to enforce it. If not, they will continue to believe that their behavior is okay and continue generation of just revenue for the states, counties, and towns will continue and get worse. So just remember that. Every case must have Corpus Delicti. There has to be mens rea as well as Actus reus. Has to be a guilty act, which is intent, and you have to have a guilty mind, which means the action was supported because you meant to do it. That's why they have these things called accidents, because accidents do happen. So that's all I got for right now. See you guys soon.